Everybody, this is Dream, and today we will have a 10-game NFL slate for you. We did pretty well in the slate yesterday, so hopefully we can continue that today. This slate does feature some good games, though it is a little bit rough. There's not a ton of value on this one, but there's some across the board, so we definitely have some options. We're going to go start with our quarterbacks here. So we got three guys that I really like quite a bit today. The first being Matt Stafford. He's just very priced well for the Rams. He's also facing Washington defense, which is definitely going to be a benefit here. They're literally the worst against quarterbacks on the season. He's priced nice and cheap, and he's had three straight games over 20 fantasy points. I look for him to have a really solid game here and has a great upside game. Josh Allen's also in play, though he does face a tough match against Dallas. I do think this game is going to be high scoring, so that definitely helps. Obviously, there does carry a little bit of risk here, but I think he's a good option on the slate. Looking at San Francisco and Brock Purdy, he's a good contrarian option off of Stafford if you want to go cheaper. He's played very well throughout the season. He's only had a couple terrible games, but he's been over 20 fantasy points in a bunch of games, and he's priced nice and fair today, and he's got a nice plus matchup against Arizona defense that really hadn't done much against quarterbacks. Excuse me, this season. Moving on to running backs, we're going to look at Christian McCaffrey first, obviously. He's facing one of the weakest defenses on the season for him to go against, and he's been dominating every single game. The only question here is if he'll score enough fantasy points to pay off or not. I do expect a touchdown or so, so he's definitely rosterable, but he does carry some risk as his prices are very high. Kyrie Williams is also in play for the Rams. He's played very well throughout the season. He's had some ups and downs, but he has a high ceiling, and that definitely gives him a lot of potential. And he's almost $2,000 cheaper than Christian McCaffrey. Looking at Ezekiel Elliott, he faces a good matchup today. He will be their lead back for New England today, and that gives him some upside as he's had two pretty good games in a row now. His price is nice and cheap, and that helps you pay for him. He does have some risk, but he definitely has a good reward as well, as he is very capable of having a solid day today. Looking at Bryce Hall for the Jets, he is going to be the lead back here. He's played somewhat inconsistent throughout the season, but he doesn't get as many attempts as some of the other running backs I've mentioned, but he does have some potential in this one, as he also does get some catches to the air, and that definitely helps us in fantasy, though he's a little bit more expensive than Ezekiel Elliott. Then we'll look at Gibson for Washington. Now that he is going to be the lead back for this one, so he will be in a bit of a timeshare, but he's very cheap, and so that does give him some potential. You can't really expect too much here, but if he can get a double-digit fantasy points, then that will be okay. Moving into our wide receivers, we have a pretty good slate here of wide receivers. We're going to start with Garrett Wilson for the Jets. He has some good upside today. He's nice and cheap. He's been pretty stable fantasy-wise considering the quarterback situation. He's had a couple off games, but I do think he'll get into double digits today, and that will definitely help him pay off at this position. Terry McLaurin is also in play for the uh, Commanders. Now, he definitely has a tough matchup here, but they haven't been great against the quarterback or against wide receivers this season, so I do think he has some good potential here, and he is one of the favorite options for this team. Coming off a bye week, that should help him get back in the role after a rough game against Miami last game out. Rashee Rice for Kansas City has played very well recently. He's really improved as the season progressed, and I like his potential in this one. Even though he does have a low floor, he's got a good ceiling, and he's priced pretty fairly here. And this is a game that Kansas City should try to get him the ball early. Then we'll look at Amari Cooper for Cleveland. Now he's kind of pricey for what he's done because he's been inconsistent, but he definitely draws some potential in this matchup against a team that has struggled against the pass this season, so I do think he has some nice potential in this one. Then we're going to look at Demarcus Robinson for, let's see, for the Rams. Now he looks like he might be the uh, wide receiver 3 today, and then if you go with Stafford, then you could definitely consider putting him in here. I think this is a really good situation for this group, and he has some nice potential in this one. Brandon Ayuk is also in play for San Francisco. If you go with Stafford, or sorry, for with Brock Purdy and this slate, then he's definitely somebody to consider. He's priced pretty fair. He's played very well all season long, and he's a great option from a fantasy perspective. A very similar situation for Nuka for the Rams if you go with Stafford. Almost the same exact price as Ayuk, and he has just as much upside and potential in this particular matchup. He's also got the same kind of ceiling as Ayuk has, though Ayuk has been better throughout the season. Sorry, I'm butchering your guys' names. Drake London also in play for Atlanta. He's played inconsistent throughout the year, but he does draw some favoritism for this team, despite the fact that they don't have many good options on this team. He definitely has some upside, and they get a good matchup here against Carolina, but it definitely carries a little bit of risk. But he's nice and cheap, and that definitely helps you pay for him. Looking at our tight ends, this is going to be a little bit strange, but we're going to look at a guy that hasn't had a 10 fantasy point game yet this season, but that is Okongu Wu. Sorry for butchering her name, but he's played decently well since Will Levis has taken over as quarterback. And the 5 games that I think Levis has been quarterback in, 4 of them he's had over 5 targets, so that gives him some potential here. If he can squeeze a touchdown, then that would definitely help him pay off, and he's just dirt cheap, so definitely worth a look. Trey McBride, excuse me, is also in play for Arizona. He's paid off in 4 of the last 6 games he's played. The matchup here is risky though, but he definitely has some potential in this one. Then we'll look at Jake Ferguson for Dallas. Now he's become a pretty good option the last couple of weeks for Dak, and I think he has that potential again today. I expect this game to be high scoring, and the tight end here will definitely have some potential. George Kittle also in play for San Francisco. Now, he may not get as many opportunities as Ferguson does, but he definitely has a higher chance of a touchdown as he does get involved in the offense early and often. Looking at our defenses, we have 3 defenses really to really like today. The first being the Carolina Panthers against Atlanta. This is obviously a pretty good matchup as Atlanta's been a pretty weak team. The Packers against Tampa Bay. This is kind of a rough one, but the Packers defense has scored some decent fantasy points the last few games. And then for the Cleveland Browns, they are probably one of the better options on this team against the Bears, who they have a good defense that has some potential to get sacks and interceptions. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.